Hey everyone, welcome to the new episode of GPU's AI and Beyond. And I have Yon from the Swan Chain team. And today's going to be a very interesting space because Swan Chain and Spheron are very close to solving problems which are into, pardon me, which are into decentralized AI, and also in terms of understanding the whole idea on decentralized storage too. And it was formerly Phil Swan. And I think this really pulls me to my first question I wanted to know about is that what was the shift from Phil Swan to Swan Chain and why did this happen? Like, why was the reason uh, uh, Phil Swan became Swan Chain?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me here, Prakash. Nice to be on this AMA. And thanks for Sphere on Network to invite us. Real quick, I'm Jean-Luc Pellerin. For those who might not know, I'm head of BD here at Swanchain. And yeah, to get into your questions of the rebrand, so this happened some time ago. Initially, Phil Swan was to reverberate the fact that we were born in the Filecoin ecosystem, so hence the Phil. As Charles was rebuilding and just building in general, what is now called Swan Chain, it became apparent to him that if he wanted to have more control and offer more flexibility and more decentralization capabilities, and just be able to do what he actually wanted to do, like put his vision into practice, he needed to build his own chain. So hence why he started building on his own L2. And then it just became a matter of fact, since he was now like his own chain, was like, well, it doesn't make sense to keep the name Fal Swan. It should now be Swan Chain. And so that transition just came normally because of what we were now building. And yeah, in order to answer the expansion into AI integration, I think that was also just natural since we started building in 2021. We're now in 2024. Over the last 3 years, there's been this huge boom in everything related to AI. Just so much demand, so much going on. It's not. I always kid. I work with a lot of startups on the side as well, and every time they're asking, like in their pitch decks, should we put the fact that we're AI enabled or whatever? I'm like,
Mhm.
it's not a term that we're using to hype a project anymore. It's now to the fact where if you're not using AI, why would we even invest in your project? Like every, every project in the world now is relying to some extent on some form of
And
AI.
most of the enterprises teams are too. Something interestingly, what is happening between enterprises teams, as you see, they're trying to implement AI solutions on their workflows. Like there are startups who are running this. Uh, I, I we have to call it some sort of narrative, and also there is much functionality to it. There are multiple enterprise teams which are creating small teams and implementing AI on top of that, and those comes like core traditional teams like Dell, like Toshiba, Oracle. These are implementing AI workflows on their day-to-day basis. So the whole market segment has shifted, right? Like once you see like once startups are the one who do it at first, right? I would say that a startup involves a technology. Like if I say Dino or if I say any of the databases technology which came first, a startup involves utilizing that technology on a scale which is yet smaller. And though if a technology like AI comes firstly towards a startup and then comes into enterprises, the scale is massive, right? Like we have to understand how we can gather to such kind of demand that is gonna come in few days. So
Mm.
I'm sorry, I just jumped in the middle of it, and it's truly like once you see that everybody's saying that you get to the narrative of AI, and you just raise money, raise capital, and start building on top of it. And we saw that many YC supported companies have a lot of list of things they can do on AI, but they are trying to change it to core conceptualization of how they are using AI, right? Like, are they building on top of AI wrappers or they are just creating a new LLM? a lot of things which is around that. So yeah, I feel very exciting stuff which is going to uh, come around in some time.
Yeah, we're following in that excitement. I mean, and that also brings it to the fact that why expand into the whole AI space. I mean, what Swan Chain and to an extent the whole Nebula AI family have been building is to give access to that. And so, who are the largest askers, if you will, or builders in the space? Who needs the most compute or the most processing power right now? It's all the AI startups and companies. Like they're the ones asking for the most bandwidth in general. So, of course, you need to cater to that, right? And being in the deep in space, being in the space of offering that bandwidth, offering those CPUs and GPUs, like of course we're going to cater to the largest askers in the industry. It just makes sense.
Yeah, like I think what I like about Swan is that Swan's vision is very technically driven of what can be achieved, right? Once I see that, once I was going through your documentation and I see that like you're doing decentralized AI computing market and also things like there is UBI, right? Like yeah, so there are few things which I feel are very technically viable. Also, like Speron's whole ideology of creating something is that it should be technically viable and it should be functional, and that those are the things which are uh, the part of the requirement itself. Like, how would you seek or how would you create something which is mostly in terms of not functional, yet you can see scale on top of it right now, like how it would happen and how would you architect the whole software design around it. So I'll jump on to the next question, like as we are speaking on top of AI and what Swan Chain is doing, like what exactly Swan Chain is trying to solve in right now in most of AI, and what kind of synergy do you have with artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so Swan Chain leverages the synergy between blockchain and AI to enhance both technologies, basically. So blockchain improves AI by providing secure, immutable data that boosts trust and integrity, and it also enabling decentralized data sharing and automating processes through smart contracts. So that being said, AI adds value to the blockchain by analyzing data for insights, optimizing smart contracts, improving decision making. So they both feed into each other, and globally, blockchain facilitates secure data sharing and transparent AI operations, which can then foster collaboration in new business models. So this integration not only enhances capabilities for each technology, but also drives the innovation and makes data more accessible and trustworthy. So they both feed into each other. They both help each other grow. I think it was sort of inevitable, if you will, that AI meets blockchain and blockchain meets AI. It's
And
it's it's a beautiful meshing of those two areas.
once you say like decentralized compute marketplace,
Pardon?
like once you say that like decentralized compute marketplace, like I want to understand what is more of into implementation side of it itself, like how you guys are implementing it, what are the top line things which you seek that should happen, because Ferron is also trying to work with Swan itself and provide on top of of Swan and become one of the providers as well. So for a normal user, how does the decentralized marketplace, GPU marketplace or AI marketplace works like?
Yeah, so the marketplace within SwanChain is managed mostly by the orchestrator that has been developed in-house and is instrumental in ensuring a sort of fair and efficient way of doing things. And builders are going to leverage Swan to cheaply and rapidly scale their AI startups in that robust environment.
So the orchestrator is more of a matchmaking engine itself, or like it
Exactly.
happens to act as a matchmaker. Okay.
Yeah.
So And like in Swan's journey, I see that you guys are working on storage as well, like uh, decentralized AI storage. And storage has been a very, uh, I don't know, it's a like even storage is hot and cold. But yeah, the whole segment of storage is elliptical once you see it. Like there, you can see that there are startups which are dying into the space, and there are startups who are doing like data availability and all of that stuff. They are thriving into the space. So what's Swan's part of you? Like how do Swan see that how you can solve decentralized storage and like the current limitation of any storage system, right? Like particularly the data sets of AI are very large to handle. So what's Swan's take on that?
Yeah, so talking about the largeness of data sets, in another AMA I did last week, somebody mentioned a parallel between the amount of information that has already been processed through the Swan ecosystem and the CERN program. So for those who aren't familiar with CERN, that's that major project in Switzerland that's working
Yeah.
on like quantum physics and trying to or doing discovered. I'm massacring CERN. Sorry if anybody is from CERN in here, but they're doing very, very important research. And I think all of their combined research to date was roughly 30 or 60 petabytes. And I think Swan Chain has already done double that. So I think it was 30 petabytes for CERN, and Swan Chain has already processed like 60 terabytes. I need to get back to you guys on those numbers, but yeah, somebody came up to us in that AMA and says like, "You guys processed like two CERNs already." I'm like, "Damn!"
Wow.
Puts things into perspective. So yeah,
Wow.
when it comes to the decentralized storage solution, uh, so I think decentralized storage solution tackles several limitations of centralized systems, particularly for large AI data sets. So they
Yeah.
offer greater scalability by distributing data across multiple nodes. They enhance reliability through redundancy and fault tolerance, and they also improve security by reducing single points of failure, which is very important. Uh, yeah, decentralized storage solutions can also be much more cost effective than you by utilizing unused storage capacity, and also alleviate performance bottlenecks through parallel data processing. As well, they provide better data sovereignty, allowing users to manage their data while adhering to local regulations. And overall, decentralized storage enhances management and efficiency of large scale AI datasets. And we've
And
seen,
like ecosystem products like multi-chain storage, like are those one like which are built on top of Swan? Like do they add the most of the traffic, or like how does that happen? Like there are other multiple products that have been using Swan's storage in terms of that. Like if you can comfortable on shedding light on that point as well.
yeah, we've had many case studies where we're actually working internally to iron those out. We want to show the world like the projects actively using Swanchain and show to the world those case studies. So I know our team is working hard internally to put those out there for easier access, and also to show the world how to better use and what the use cases can be. I always say a picture is worth 1,000 words, so a video is worth a million words. So we're putting those educational videos out soon to show the world like
So
who's
what
using
like
it.
how does the
But what
project looks like? Like let's say I'm a XYZ project and I want to build on top of AI. So how do I get support from Swan? And however I get support from Swan, let's say I'm an AI project, I just started, just pinned up my front end, just doing some sort of backend where I'm fetching from an API. And how would Swan would come in this picture and say like, hey, look, you can do this with us, and we would provide you support on top of it. And it like irrespective of being a Web3 or a Web2 startup, like what are the support points for Swan when it comes to its ecosystem?
So funny that you ask. We're currently running two different support systems. So we have our own dev grant in house, where anybody can go in and ask for support. We have that form that you can fill out, specifying like what you're building, what stage you're at, how you want to contribute to the ecosystem, how your project helps do X, Y, and Z. And then we offer grants in Swan for now in our local token that we're doing a TG for in Q4. But we're also applying for a major grant from the Optimism ecosystem, where we'll also have an add-on to our own dev grant in OP, which is very interesting for people who want to come in and join and start building. Um, and yeah, in general, we're super open when it comes to helping projects come in and build. Like through the GitHub, people come in and ask and do the open up the conversation for anything related to dev grants, and that's how we work. And within the team that's already up to like I think it's 40 or 50 developers across the world. We're mostly in Toronto, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Singapore,
Where is
Vietnam.
the best demographic you have got for developers?
Pardon?
Where is the best demographic you have got for developers building on top of Swan?
What
Let's
do you
say
mean
like
by?
the highest number of people are building from Toronto or Dubai
So
or
for sure,
Shanghai. Where
it's more in Asia in general. That's where most of the team is, but more and more North America and Europe as well. But Asia is definitely a larger market. Just more people building, more demand. So it's just natural that we're aiming there. And also Charles being a Chinese national and founder, although he's been in Montreal for almost 15 years now, he even speaks French.
wow,
He's a polymath for sure. He speaks French, English, Mandarin, and probably a few other. I think he's starting to learn Vietnamese a bit because we
the
also have
real
a
chain agnostic person is Charles actually. He is language agnostic. Like you ask him question in so Charles basically handles every language. Well, you see that there are different languages on top of Discord, like English, Mandarin, and all of that. And Charles can basically answer questions in any of the chat without.
he's a polymath, a polyglot. He's a sort of a Renaissance man, as they call him.
That's a nice name to give someone, right? And I think I
You can already see it now on a Forbes article. Charles Cow, Renaissance man.
That's amazing. And I think the recent interview with Peter Thiel and in Joe Rogan show, like he said, like to be successful, po- to be entrepreneurial, you have to be a polymath. And now it makes sense, right? You
Oh man,
so
he definitely embodies that for sure. I mean, I've been working with him only for the last few months, and we have office days in person here in Montreal, and I always appreciate those office days, man. He's just full of knowledge, and the type of way that he works, and the type of ethos that he embodies, not only like with himself and with the team, but with the project and with what he's building. It's like I don't know how to say this. It's I haven't had the pleasure to work with like managers like that are so like in tune with what they're doing and that
passionate.
are passionate and that are
Yeah.
also that have like that good mix of patience and also stubbornness. Like I don't know. It's beautiful to see, and I've been learning a lot through working with him. And it's been a real pleasure to. I don't know if
Charles,
Charles
if
is
you're
listening.
watching this, you literally have your fans over
No,
here.
no, that's me. I'm a big Charles Cow fan.
Let's go, Swan Chain, Charles Cow crew.
Yeah, honestly,
We
like
need that on your
we will
t-shirt.
be hiring a lot in the next few years if all goes well, and I definitely encourage to try to be a part of the Center of Excellence here in Montreal. That's where we're going to be building out the COE, and
Amazing.
yeah, he's great to work with. He's great to work for. He and yeah, that's what I want to say. Like when he does mistakes, or when somebody in the team does mistakes, like he doesn't like he it doesn't like fluster him, like he's gonna get into it. It's like, well, why did this mistake happen? How can we learn from it? How can we like move past this and do better? And even in the project, like if there's a problem with code or something, or things are not moving to space, it's like, let's analyze this. Like, how do we do better? How do we move faster? Like, it's always faster, better, stronger. And like he doesn't do like the blame game. Well, whose fault is this? Like, okay, well, whose fault is it, and why was it your fault? Like, what made it to the fact that it was your fault? Like, not trying to blame someone, but trying to find like the source of the problem and try to fix it at the source, you know. And to see people that are so like in tune with that, and bring that forward, and knowing that he's like that with his baby Swan Chain, it's great to see that there's a good steward to the chain.
Wow, that's so amazingly put. And I think the problem solving model is, once you see like a person is there and you see like irrespective of how they treat a problem, the way they treat a problem into day life, that's how their product treats the problem itself. You see
Mm.
that it's a whole reciprocation and reflection of how you see things, and the software you architect is truly a product that has come out of your day-to-day ways. So I feel I am super bullish on Swan, and looking forward to
Likewise.
what Charles has in his pocket. Charles and Yon and the whole Charles crew has come up with. And Sferon has always been supporter of Phil Swan and now Swan Chain from very initially, like because I think everybody share their set of PL days, like protocol lab days. So yeah, I think we also share the same enthusiasm towards storage, towards decentralization. Like even once you see that the Fizz node is so. Did you try our Fizz node yet? Like, did you get a chance to try our Fizz node?
I
If not,
haven't
I'll
had a
give
chance.
you like, so you can connect any Mac, Linux, and Windows system you want to in terms of the network. Like it's fairly that simple. I'll drop you a link as well, and you can start earning rewards. It would give you compute task, and the whole architecture of Fiznode is so simple and yet so state of the art. So we are very bullish on understanding that if you take any GPU marketplace or understanding of any GPU marketplace as such, which is being built right there, the the biggest problem is scale, right? Like it comes to scale itself. Like how good it be when I compare myself to AWS? How good it be if I compare myself to GCP? Or like how composable would it be like once I start utilizing it, right? I think these are the questions which really rings in one's mind, that like is it truly a solution number two, or it's just like, because we guys are in the industry of vaporware, right? Like you see that there are so many vaporwares which are being built around us. uh, and the fact I love that about Phil Swan and also about Sferon is that these are very product driven companies, right? Like once you have sense of product, once you have something, like I remember in last 2 years back of Token, I think Charles was presenting something and he was wearing a kimono while doing that. So it was also fun to see that, like a person wearing a kimono and going ahead with presenting one of the great softwares written. So I feel, how do you tackle this? Like, how do you tackle where it comes, where you are fighting centralization, and you're also in a lot of products where there are a lot of vaporwares, right? How do you fight that distinction? Like, how does a user makes that distinction, says that okay, so on chain is something I can trust building on, yet it comes from Web3 and blockchain itself. So how does that happen?
Yeah, so within the whole Swan Chain ecosystem, Swan Chain is one of many projects under like the Nebula AI umbrella. So we also have like Nebula Block, Swan Chain, Fog Meta, Helix Mesh, and these are all managed by Charles. And so he's seeing also the Web2 side and the Web3 side. So the Web2 side being Nebula Block, where we can onboard Web2 companies easily through there. They can then be in Web3 without necessarily knowing it through Nebula Block, which is also a part of Swan Chain. The team at Fogmeta have been building nonstop a bunch of different projects within the Swan Chain ecosystem as well. Our team at Helix Mesh is mostly the whole marketing and like front end side, if you will, making sure that everything that's UI UX related is on top of its game. I have to give a huge shout out to the team at Healing Smash. They've been so incredible. Shout out to Merlin and Levi. I know you guys have been working around the clock for the last 3 4 months, but the
Bjorn
numbers
is
speak.
such a great person. Like you're such a appreciative person. Were you in sports before by any chance? Because people
I
who are
did a
in
lot of
sports,
sports, but I also believe in the ethos. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
yeah,
And
that's so
I mean,
amazing. Like you're so appreciative of the whole team.
if we're using sports analogies, Charles has been a good coach.
Yeah.
Definitely has a football coach dad energy.
I think there is a show, right? Like it's a very famous show. Everybody, what's the
Ted
name of it?
Lasso,
Yeah, Ted Lasso. The
yeah,
energy is like
definitely have
it's
some Ted
insane.
Lasso vibes.
Yeah, it's insane. Like everybody watches it in our company, and it used to be best show ever. Like everybody was so stoked about it. So yeah,
I've
it's
been
good
to a
to have that Ted
show.
Lasso energy in a protocol, and and to see how decentralization is solved through that. Like, na- I want to come to some of the topics I want to touch today. Like before we don't lose out on time. Uh, like, what do you feel about the universal basic income? Like, what's the UBI model? Like, can you
Yeah,
tell me? Yeah, it's the question of the
that's
the
that's one of my
how like
favorite components in there because it's something that just makes total sense and nobody's doing. And I've been a big proponent of UBI like my whole life. I even have my book here, Andrew Yang, The War on Normal People, who actually wanted to make UBI a thing back in the last elections. He was running for president on a platform of UBI, Universal Basic Income for all Americans, where every American would be getting $1,000 a month, regardless of their race or gender, age or whatnot. No, I think it would start at 18, but still, huge freaking platform. And in general, the ethos behind UBI is that everybody wins. Everybody has a starting point. Like when you play Monopoly, which is capitalism at its finest, even in Monopoly, you pass through Go every round, like unless you go to jail. And even if
yeah,
you go to jail, once you come out of jail, you still get your Go.
yeah.
Like you wait a while, but you still pass by Go eventually. And and the ethos and that is that to start with, won't get you very far in the United States. It barely covers rent, barely covers food or whatnot, but it's something. Like you're not going to be thrown out in the streets or whatnot. So the ethos behind UBI, I've always been a huge proponent. It just gives people like a step, a certain security. You're still going to have to work. You're still going to have to contribute to society or whatnot. It's not like a lot of the right wingers are like, no, UBI is bad. It incentivizes laziness or whatnot. It's like, no, it doesn't. $1,000 a month is not going to have. You can barely survive on that, and regardless which country you're in. Um, but at least it gives you like that stepping stone. Like you can start from that. If I was an entrepreneur, well, no, I am an entrepreneur, but if I was a young entrepreneur who had like nothing, but I had that $1,000 a month to just get me by, like give me like the basic nutrition that I need to have me work nonstop on my product and then launch something crazy. Like how much innovation could we do with that, And the ethos behind that is that all of this dormant computing power around the world uh, could be put to good use just through that. Like a lot of people are using networks like Akash or whatnot, and putting their GPUs on there and not necessarily getting rewarded for it until it's being used. With the UBI at Swan Chain, as long as you're in the ecosystem, as long as you're providing that potential capacity, you're rewarded for that, just for joining, just for being there. It's not going to be like a crazy return just by being there, but at least you're getting something, you're getting a trickle of Swan token just by being there, and it also incentivizes more people coming in. Uh, the provider ecosystem making Swan Chain one of the largest providers in the space, and once we have that, I mean, we can potentially start competing with like the AWS and Googles of the world, which I think is
But how would you divide the compute jobs? Like, would it be possible to share the compute job with so many providers which are becoming part of the network itself?
Yeah, so through the orchestrator, it's able to do that as it may, and also through the demand side. So when you're asking for all of this power. You can decide where, when, how. You can decide, well, I want all of them to be clustered in Asia, or I actually want them to be clustered around the world because decentralization is more important to me. You can pick and choose like your settings for the type of project that you want. If you need only one H100 for like a just a bit of machine learning, then great. You don't necessarily need like 1,000. But if you're running this huge model and you need all of it, like you need to ping like the whole network, you need like 1,000 H100s. I don't know if we have 1,000 yet, but we're getting there. But you need like the capacity of 1,000 because you want to run it like within a minute or within a few days instead of like using one and having it run for a month. You have the potential to do that, and if you wanted to do that within like an AWS or Google or Azure ecosystem, you would have to pay like on a monthly basis for like the whole um, amount of processing power that you need, and you would use it for maybe like a day or two for what you're doing, and then you still have to pay for the other 28 days. So what's interesting with Swan Chain is that if you're stuck in that type of commitment, you can actually use that and put it onto Swan Chain and try to get a return on investment from what you already paid for that you're not using. So that could be interesting as well.
So the provider end is also incentivized on becoming part of Spheron, right?
Yeah.
Of becoming part of Swan as well.
Hmm.
So, like, how do you define the structure of incentivizing the providers? Like, how do you see the uptime of that, and like, what are the things which you mostly are like something which are of concern for Swan to become anybody to become part of the network? Like, how do you check that?
So yeah, for the providers, a main incentivization just to be there is the UBI itself, and then after that, it's depending on what you're providing, what you're putting within the ecosystem, and how it could be used. Like I know H100s are very popular these days, so if anybody has some dormant H100s, bring them over. Um, and then yeah, afterwards it's for us to keep building and growing that community of people that could actually come in and use it. Like through all the AMAs that I've been doing over the last few months, a main point of concern that's been coming up is getting users, getting more people to come in and actually use the capacity that you have. Like you look at the numbers in the Akash network, which is the one that comes up a lot because they, not saying necessarily one of the first, but they're one of the large ones coming up in the last few years. You see all of these providers, but then when you look at the usage or like how many of them are actually being used, it's not so much. And so for providers to be on
I
on
think
an
Spheron
ecosystem.
has contributed a lot towards that. Like, we have the reason that we have supported it for a cast to top the chart as well. Like, we have been part of it for pastly few long years, and yeah, I understand your point. Like, how does it happen, and how do you incentivize it and keep it at a steady growth? Like, that is something which is very important. Like, number of providers coming in and not leaving out the network, like are being retained in the network itself for being there and utilizing compute. Like, that is something where the like the problem with providers is that they're not getting utilized completely. So to solve that, I think that's one of the greatest things that I feel Swan and Spheron is trying to solve together. Like, that's something where I see that there should be a lot of synergy on top of that. Like, I see user driven products can be done, but also we have to see on the supply side as well. Like, once you said that H100 are a very big requirement right now, but if you go and lease out a decentralized VM or a decentralized container environment right now, it would be very hard to do that with an H100. There would be no products which are actually working today, like very less products which are working today. And I feel Swan and Spheron is very much focused on to solve this by the product.
Yeah, definitely.
I think what's the roadmap for Swan looks like?
Yeah, so in the next few months, we're gearing up for TGE. So we're aiming Q4 2024. So can't give an effective date just now, but we've reached the numbers that we wanted to reach. We've grown our following immensely in the last few months. Again, shout out to the team at Helix Mesh. You guys have been awesome on that part. Um, and yeah, mostly all eyes on deck, or all hands on deck for TGE in the next few months. And through that, and through the growing of the community, it's incentivizing more and more people to come in to the nitty gritty of the project and start building, start coming in, do the dev grant. Also very focused on the OP grant that we applied for. That if we get it, or when we get it, knocking on wood, when we get it, that's going to be just a huge boost to not only the Swan ecosystem but the OP ecosystem, in and of
Yeah.
itself. Because, well, like when you're a part of the OP stack and you're a part of the super chain, which Swan is now, um, everything you do for your own project automatically boosts the value and the importance and the pertinence of the super chain ecosystem as well. Um, so I find the way to grow within, or the way we've been growing within the OP ecosystem and how it's helped Swan Chain grow is very, very interesting. I love that business model, if you will, or that growth model that OP has. Definitely something to look out for any project looking to start from scratch and looking to build with the super chain or with the OP stack. Definitely, I think that's a way to go. It's something that I wasn't super familiar with until joining Swan Chain. I've been very chain agnostic. I've been working with a bunch of different chains. I'm an ambassador for the Avalanche ecosystem as well. I've touched on a bunch of different things. I've been in the Ethereum ecosystem since 2016, but I just somehow wasn't privy to or hadn't necessarily jumped on the optimism before Swan Chain. And over the last few months, I've sort of done a master's degree in optimism and just know everything about it, having to like apply for the grant and just getting to know everybody in the ecosystem and becoming close to that ecosystem. And shout out to the Optimism gang as well. Super professional. They've been so helpful, like holding our hand throughout the whole process. It, it, it's uh, it's strange because in the Web 2 space or in any other SaaS product or whatnot, like you try to apply for a grant or whatnot, and you're going to get a call from someone halfway across the world, if you can even talk to a human, and now it's all chatbots or whatnot. And to be able to talk to humans in a Web3 ecosystem so easily has been very heartwarming. It's
Yeah,
refreshing.
I feel that there is a lot of like lot of professional growth, number of professionals working in into the space, and also ironing out like once the space was like, I don't want to say it, but it was a bit of echo chamber in very initially, and then it is now moving to more of a very solution driven and path focused. Like the projects which are focused itself, I'm not saying like not for everybody, but yeah, like I see that there is a very great and not typical change on top of on understanding like this kind of growth, and for the optimism ecosystem itself, like what they're doing is pretty great. Like it's great to see that you are from that ecosystem, and you guys are also building on top of it, so that makes like even better, right? Like but I think I would love to like read more on what you guys are specifically doing on the chain, and how you like the once you talk about the super chain and how it enables it's very very lucrative for anybody to understand and to work on. So yeah, Yon, so I think we are coming to the end of the segment, and where I would want to know that how would you think like AI, GPUs, and beyond. Like we spoke about AI, we spoke about GPUs. What do you think is going to be the beyond? Like, what is going to be the beyond for Swan Chain in past 6 years or 12 years? Where would you see that Swan Chain is going to become?
In the next 6 years, we're definitely gonna have a huge team. We're gonna have a huge amount of people using Swan Chain. As we grow, I mean, sky's the limit. If we can be anywhere near as competitive as AWS or Google or Azure, and be like a top contender there, not only for Web3 projects, but also Web2, like just traditional companies. And hopefully within the next 6 years as well, we're going to stop this dichotomy between Web2 and Web3. Like just everything's going to be
Yeah.
Web3. We
Yeah.
won't even have to call it Web3 anymore. It's just going to be the new norm. Everything's going to be built with blockchain in the background, with AI, with decentralized compute and storage. That should be like the new way forward. And if I could be so optimistic, hopefully it won't take 6 years to get there. But I've been in the Web3 space since before we called it Web3, and it's been slow and steady over the last 8 years. I've seen a lot of growth, a lot more people coming in, but also the same problems repeating themselves, and adoption being like sluggish a bit because of like different market cycles or American elections affecting certain things. Uh, so it's been slow and steady, but over the years it's grown and grown and grown, and also become more exponential over the last few years. I
Yeah.
think COVID was a huge boost to all of that as well. Like just so many people joined through COVID. A lot of people joined through like meme tokens or shit coins as they call them, and trading those, which not too sure how I
It's
feel about that,
so
but
strange. Like it's so
it's
strange to like say, right, that COVID has one of the biggest influx of users for us and
just
like for
trading
people to
NFTs. Like
yeah.
a bunch of my friends back in 2016 were calling me crazy for putting so much money in fake internet coins and like not understanding Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatnot. And then in 2020, 2021, asking me like, oh, how do I buy an NFT? Like, there's this Batman NFT, or there's this like Marvel and Warner Brothers and like all these major studios were starting to like launch their own NFT projects and stuff like that, and everybody
Yeah.
wanted. And they were all coming to me because I was like their source of truth. I was the only guy in the neighborhood who was doing it back then. And then from then
The
to where we
wise yawn, the wise yawns. Like I remember like becoming the same friend in the group, and I try to say no to people into like whenever your friends come to you, they're like, can we buy that? Can we buy that? No, like like the way you look traditional markets. That's how you should see things. Like not with so much volatility in your head at the
for me
very
it was always
initially.
don't spend what you can't afford, and just triple check your transactions before sending anything to anywhere.
True, absolutely true.
Then after that, if you want to ape in $1,000 into this brand new NFT that you have no idea what's it, but somebody on Twitter said it was going to moon, then I can't stop you. You need to make your own mistakes. That's going to be $1,000 lesson.
Yeah, I think I just recently took a lesson, and I don't want to talk about it on a live, but I'm going to tell you in the chat like that lesson was very expensive. So even
And to anybody listening, be careful out there. There's been a wave of front end attacks recently. I know Avalanche was a part of that. A bunch of other ecosystems were hit hard. I almost got caught through Avalanche. Thank God for MetaMask giving me that warning saying that this address is potentially malicious. And I'm like, oh, let's double check that. Because it looks so real. I mean, I was in the Discord. It was Crypto Chimba, who's like the OG moderator in Avalanche. That like I know personally. Like we've worked together on some projects, and uh, like I see it come from him. I'm like, this can't be fake. Like it's for sure Chimba, right? And he's saying, oh, there's this airdrop and or whatnot, and like in an official channel and everything. It's like, how would a hacker have access to that? And lo and behold, it was a hacker, and like it was early in the morning. I see that in my feed. I'm like, oh, what's this? Oh, okay, cool. I'll go get an airdrop because it was aimed at ambassadors, like for our contribution in the space, like where we're getting an airdrop. Like, oh, that's cool. Like they've done stuff like that before, so it wasn't out of the blue. But
okay,
it was malicious. And it's like, oh my God, like how were they able to get a hold of his account and do this and like plan this and plan the content and plan the links? And like there's a lot of planning going behind these
yeah,
very effective hacks. And it's like, who are these people who are behind this, putting all this time and energy and effort to do like these super sophisticated hacks? Like, why don't you put that energy to do something constructive? What the fuck? Like, you could use all this time and energy and effort to do something constructive. Just do that instead. Like, it's like, why are there so many people trying to scam the world? It's like, what are you gonna do with that money? What are you gonna do with all these funds that you stole from people? You gonna go buy alcohol and drugs and have a party, or like you're not gonna give this to your family. Like, your neighborhood is not gonna benefit from it. Like, you're doing this selfishly. Like, why do that? It's like, I don't know.
That's
Like,
a
if
very
you would
great
do it for a good
and
reason, like giving it
yeah.
back to their community, building a well, buying a whole bunch of supplies for their poor village wherever they are, uh, I wouldn't even be mad. It's like, great, you found a way to get quick funds to your family and neighbor, and at least a village is prospering somewhere in the world, you know. But I know for a fact that that's not the case. Like, they're doing it just for personal gain,
It's
and
not being used for good stuff. Like I know it. Like I know it
no.
for sure.
And it sucks that that's still plaguing us. Like, over the last 8 years, like back in 2016 during the ICO and pre-ICO, like I was triple,
Yeah.
quadruple checking all of my all of my investments to make sure that it was going to the right project. Like Kyber network, not Kyber without the H. Like, something was just like stupid like that. Like, somebody doing a beautiful copy of the website, but removing like one letter in the name, and like people would just go to it, and they would rack up millions of dollars through these scams. And it's like, damn, that was 8 years ago, and they're still doing the same thing, just even more sophisticated.
And they've learned a lot. Like I see that there are very new in like even on the contract level everybody is becoming like they need to be certain of what they are signing on to, because sometimes it's in the contract itself and you end up losing a lot of money, and only put money what you can lose and grow back from. I think that's a
Yeah.
very wise statement you have given to me on, and I would implement this. I would definitely implement this right now.
A very, I gotta print this somewhere in my background, but don't trust, verify. I think that's the ethos of like the not your keys, not your crypto, and don't trust, verify. Those are like the two things that we need to remember in this space.
Yep, truly, man. I think this has been a great space itself, like very candid, and I love the whole energy we had around, even from privacy, even from decentralization, AI, and whatnot. And kudos to Swan Chain on what they are building, and Sveron is always a supporter of Swan itself, and the whole team is pretty lovely. Like the whole energy of the team is amazing. Like so, that's what we think of Swan at Sferon. And thank you so much for joining this, Sean. And we would love to have you on more broader topics where we have panels and everybody who's into the space building on top of it. And thank you so much for joining today from the Swan chain. And guys, thank you so much for watching this. And you have been an amazing audience. If you have any questions, you can always drop in the chat and we would love to take it online. Right now we didn't have any questions yet on our Twitter, so I think we can always take it offline as well. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you so much for inviting me. Definitely happy to join any other further AMAs that you have. As you know, I love talking, so always happy to join other AMAs. Uh, Last word of wisdom for people listening: make sure to follow the Swan Chain missions and quests. We have a bunch of stuff happening within our ecosystem. A bit too long of a list to go through right now, but we have a galaxy mission going on. We have an Intract mission. We have our own mission. We have another mission that we're working on right now for TGE. So a bunch of ways to get involved, start learning about it, and also get get rewarded for it through the airdrop, through the points that are accumulated through all of these missions. So be sure to go and look at that. And yeah, happy to keep talking, Prakash, and looking forward to our next chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good one, John.